This is Trigger Point, episode 13. My name's Serena, and sitting across from me is my co-host Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry, I'm not speaking properly, and I might sound a bit weird because I'm actually quite sick right now. I sound better than I did a couple of hours ago.
That is true. She sounded horrible before.
Very nasal, very nasal. But this shows my dedication to the show.
Yep. Okay.
What?
What?
A little bit of an enthusiasm there.
Hey, yeah, I feel like I'm very dedicated. I deliberately found 1 week where I can actually, do a recording and suggested, let's do it now before I'm, stuck with exams and essays and whatnot.
I am looking forward to next year when Peter finally graduates and he can no longer use us as an excuse. And we can make this into a weekly show? Or a fortnightly show?
We have enough problems trying to figure out our next topic.
Yeah.
We actually, before the start of the show, we just had probably an hour's worth of discussion trying to figure out what we're going to do next before we actually came to a conclusion.
No. Part of that is because whenever we talk about possibilities, we then describe the possibility to the other person, like what the book is about
or what the show's about, and then it's always like, no, that sounds really bad. or like, no, I'm not going to read that.
And we also get sidetracked.
Yes, which we do a lot.
We were supposed to record 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
So anyway, what have we been up to this past month, Serena? You go first, since you have a lot of things to share.
Well, actually, to be completely honest, I don't know whether I could repeat it another time because I've been telling the same story so many times. I've been camping.
Glamping.
I've been glamping, but it's still terrible for me because I don't do well outdoors. I need temperature control. I am an indoor plant that requires, regular maintenance. And being outdoors where it's constantly cold and wet and things are dirty, it's just not fun.
But so why were you at this glamping?
Well, no, I was there for, there was a week-long, I do the LARPing thing, the live-action role-play every Friday night, and we go and fight, except twice a year people will drive up to the middle of nowhere where there's no reception, no internet, for a week-long event where you fight and you role-play and stuff like that. It sounds a lot more fun than how I'm making it sound. Probably because right now I'm just overwhelmed by all the camping that I have to do that completely detracts from my joy of everything else. But it was fun. Also, I got sick from that because it was cold and damp. Oh, I forgot to mention this. On the way there, in the middle of the night, I ran over a wombat.
You actually did mention it to me.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I forget what I've said already.
But yeah, you did mention that. Poor wombat. Well, at least your car didn't break, so...
No.
That's a plus.
We got out of the car, checked to see whether he was dead. It was dead. And got a big, thick stick to roll the wombat off the road. Because we didn't want other people running over it and damaging their car. A wombat is really heavy. They're really solid. And it takes a lot to move it.
Yes.
Because neither of us wanted to grab its leg and pull it off the side of the road.
Understandable.
Yeah. And, interestingly enough, I found out that blood glows in the light of flashlights. Or iPhone flashlight, anyway. Yeah, I didn't know if blood glows.
Well, yeah. Because that's how, forensics...
Yeah, well, I thought that was like black light. I didn't think just normal flashlight would make a car glow as well.
Oh, true.
Yeah. So that was kind of sad. Not a good way to start a trip at all.
That kind of sets the tone for your trip.
Look, as I told you already, and I won't go into details here, there were moments that were really good. I'm not a person cut out for camping.
It was great to the extent that you managed to experience all of that, but there was also a lot of parts that you much rather not have to deal with.
Yeah, well, and also I had to constantly take medication because of my hay fever to not die.
See, I'm so glad, like I've only ever had like a few hay fever episodes before, and if I do, they tend to be pretty bad. But I haven't had one in 5-6 years now, so touch wood.
Touch wood.
What
What have you been doing?
I have been busy with essays again. I had like a 4,000 word essay which I had to write, which I did in like. I hope my lecturer never listens to this, but I did it in 2 days.
That brings back memories. Having like a word count, like a goal, a limit, or whatever you have to aim at.
Oh god, it was the worst thing ever. And I seriously I read my essay and I was like, I have no freaking idea what I just wrote. It barely makes, grammatical sense. I think half of my sentences were, disjointed and makes absolutely no point. I'm just hoping for a pass, really. I don't. It's my last semester. I'm so over it. So I have been admittedly very, very poor in my study. Just care factor is like 0 at the moment.
I do wonder about like a professor's life in a way, right? They're looking at these essays, and most of the time, I think like 80, perhaps 90% of the time, the stuff that they get is just so like, it's either rushed or like people just don't care or like, they're just trying to, when you give a word limit to people or a goal or something, that's what they're working at, right? They're not making a good argument here. They're just trying to,
just trying to reach that word limit so I can hand this freaking thing in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because of the essay, I basically had like 3 weeks of like no social life, no enjoyment whatsoever. Trying to, not that I actually did anything about it, it was just knowing that I shouldn't.
Oh.
So
like,
I was
you didn't.
I didn't use the time to actually do my work or my job or my essay, but I also prevented myself from doing things I would have enjoyed because I was thinking, no, I should be doing the essay instead. So I did neither.
Sorry, I can't laugh properly because I'm coughing at the same time.
But, I mean, I'm sure anyone who's been a student understand that feeling that,
Oh, yeah.
they're like, I really should be working on this. And then you're like, but I really can't be stuff. So I'm going to watch something instead. But I don't want to watch this because I should be working on my essay. So you just go to and fro doing...
You're just racked with guilt.
Yeah.
But not doing what you need to do.
Exactly. So I did that for a while. And so I had like 3 weeks of like no enjoyment whatsoever. So as soon as I finished the essay, I'd like binged watch like The Flash, all 3 seasons of it in like less than 4 days, 5 days. It was great. I love binge watching shows.
Do you remember when you first finished uni the first time? Like the first, not the first summer holiday, but the first, the first few months when uni is supposed to start, but you don't have to go to uni anymore because it was over. Do you remember what it felt like?
I don't know. I don't really think I remember that.
Because you're going to experience it again. And I'm going to remind you. The first few months after uni stopped, you will be racked with guilt. No matter what you're watching or doing or reading, you'll have this feeling like,
of course, I should be doing something else.
Is there a project or an assignment that I'm supposed to be... Like, should I be enjoying myself here? There should be something else I should be doing. Because you won't have any assignments. You have a lot more time on your hands. And you'll be like, I don't feel right.
That I should have all this time.
Yeah. You're just going to make yourself feel guilty for no reason. You have that to look forward to.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think I really had that because I think when the year I finished uni, I then worked part-time for a bit before I went on a round the world trip with my parents.
Oh, okay.
So...
well, lucky you.
Yeah, I know, right? It was great. Everything was paid for. I didn't have to pay a single thing for a trip. It was brilliant. Went to all the interesting Europe places. It was great. Loved it. But yeah, I think because I was so excited about that, it didn't really register that I wasn't actually going to uni anymore. And because I was working part-time, I felt like that part-time, it felt like going to uni.
Okay.
So, yeah. I don't know. No, actually, I'm looking forward to not having anything due. I'm looking forward to not have to look at deadlines. I look at not having to do revisions. I look forward to not having to do essays. And
You look forward to having time to actually reading the books and the TVs and stuff that I tell you to?
yeah. Yeah. Whether I do or not is a different matter, but yes, technically I will have the time to do it.
Whether you do it is another.
Whether I do it is another thing.
Kind of like how the book we were supposed to talk about this episode.
Yeah, about that. Are we talking about that now? Like, are we?
Why did you have to ruin it? It was supposed to be a perfect segue into that topic, and then you have to point it out.
What? Yeah, the book.
The book.
So our topic for this week was
S. Dot.
Yep.
We both have the book on the desk
Yes.
right next to us.
Yes.
It
Oops, sorry.
knocking things against the mic. And
To be fair, in my defense, given how busy I was and given how many things I had, I still read half of the book. I didn't finish it. I first admit I didn't finish, but I read up to half of the book. How much did you read, Serena?
well, I'm just picking up the book right now, and I'm having a look at where my bookmark is. Actually, let me open it. I am on page now. Okay. I'm not actually sure whether this is actually correct. Where the bookmark is where I'm up to. I am on to. Oh no! Okay, this is not right. This is when I read it the second time with the
Oh right with
side
the
comments.
side comments.
Because okay, I'll explain later. But okay, I am up to page 33 according to my bookmark, out of a book that has 456 pages. So I'm a little less than 10% through the book. It's 10%, right? Yeah.
Yes.
A little less than 10%. I'm pretty sure that when I first read it the first time around, I did get up to 10%. I did get up to page 40 something.
That still doesn't make it better. See, I at least read up to... Okay, so where am I up to? I read up to page 223.
Yeah, okay. You're halfway there.
Yeah,
You're halfway.
I made halfway of the book.
Okay, but there's a difference in how we read. You skim.
That is true.
I actually read.
I read for the first part, and then I realized I couldn't do it because it just wouldn't work.
Peter, I know how you watch TV as well. You have a tendency of skipping scenes and fast forwarding things when they bore you.
Yeah.
So you kind of forget details. So if that's how you read this book, this is not a book that you can skim.
No, it really isn't.
Well, it's a book that we can skim. We should skim, but they don't want you to skim because reasons.
So yeah, as you can probably tell from our conversation just then, we both didn't finish the book.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, but first, let's talk about what we liked about the book.
Should we actually explain what the book is first? I mean, we did explain it a few episodes back.
Yeah,
but I think...
Recap.
A very quick recap. For those who hadn't listened to it. Okay, the book is called S, and it's written by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. It's a multimedia project, in a sense. It's not just a novel. It's a novel that has... there's a core story, and there are notes written in the margin of the book. So it's a layered story. There's the story in the middle, the actual novel.
Actual text. Which is called Ship of Theseus.
Yep, Ship of Theseus by V.M. Straka. And then there are two characters who write comments in the notes to each other.
Yeah, Eric and Jen.
And they are researching or investigating this mystery surrounding the author of the book. So you are reading two things that's going on at the same time?
Three things?
Three things, including the paraphernalia.
Yeah.
Like there's like postcards and letters and photos and
there's a lot of extra things in this book.
That's just slipped in between the pages. And that's what attracted me to this book to begin with. When I was first introduced to this book, I was told that, it's multi-layered. When you open it up, there's like bits and pieces falling out of it, and you're reading postcards to people, newspaper articles, and there's like these two interesting characters who are like looking into the depth, this mysterious depth of the author of the book. And I thought, that sounds fantastic. I want to read this, in this day and age when books have become digitalized, like it's all ebooks or like audiobooks and stuff, there's less and less reasons to buy a physical book, especially, unless you're like Peter, who likes reading physical books, then you buy it. But for me, I'm finding less and less reasons because they're annoying to carry, right? You can't read them everywhere, and if it's dark, you can't read it because
you can't read it.
You can't read it.
Whereas this book really kind of encourages people to get the physical copy because of all the paraphernalia you have. It really encourages you to get that book because it has all of these extra bits to it that you wouldn't really get in an e-format.
Yeah, even if they had an e-book of this and then they have all the newspaper articles as like PDF pages, you don't get that feel.
Yeah, one of the reasons is because in this book they have postcards, which actually feels like postcards. They have letters, which are written...
Handwritten letters. Well, they're printed, but they look like handwritten letters. Yeah. They have...
napkins. They have someone putting a map on a napkin, and you actually have napkin, and that feels and looks like a napkin.
They actually use napkin paper. Yeah. Right?
So it's all of this extra sense that you get from the physical book that you wouldn't be able to get.
It's tactile. You feel this book.
Yeah, there's a lot of textures to this book that you just wouldn't get from an e-version of it per se. And the one thing that we really, really impressed both of us was just how well it was made, how good the quality of the book itself.
Yeah, because it's really easy, very, very easy for all these inserts and stuff to be made from the same cardstock, printed out from a newspaper, printed out from just some printer. But like the newspaper article feels like newspaper paper. And all the handwritten notes are, someone must have handwritten it.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was scanned and then printed as it was. Like the amount of effort and the time it would have taken to create some of these. Like even now I just pulled out one of the inserts and it's a photograph. It's a photograph. And it's like on the back of the photograph you have those watermarks that photo paper has. And you're like, wow, they put a lot of effort into this. This is why this book costs a lot, right?
Yes.
This
was not a cheap book.
It wouldn't have been a cheap book to make.
No. In that sense, it was really impressive. It was one of that really grand scale that people actually put all this effort into.
It's a big project.
It's a big project.
Like all those handwritten notes, they have different color ink, and like to denote like the different timelines of the notes.
Of the notations, yeah.
And like it starts off with a pencil and then later with a pen, and some of these are felt tip pens because the word slightly feathers on the paper. And you're like, wow, the amount of attention to detail in this book is just fantastic. And I love it. Like, you just feel it. Now, the problem with that also is that the moment you open the book, all this stuff starts falling out. Like, that's what happened when I first opened it. I got things falling out of the pages. I'm like, oh my God, where is this piece supposed to go? And there are actually websites dedicated to tell you where this piece of paraphernalia should go back, like between page whatever and whatever.
Obviously this has happened to other people before, so yeah. But if you ever do read this book and you ever do have a copy of it, please don't shake it over because things will fall out and it's a pain to put it back in.
Oh, actually, there's another thing. Like on the spine of the book, they have like the Huey Decimal number, like the little sticker with the Huey Decimal number.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to look at your copy. Mine is just peeling off.
Mine
your sticker. Okay. I was just wondering whether they they stuck it on with some bit of it peeling off to make it look like it's an old library book.
No, my one is
Okay, I've just been pretty rough with my copy then.
But it's like simple details like that, like because this is supposed to be a library book.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have this is normal.
Yeah, and there's like a stamp on the back of the book with the
Dates that it was loaned and returned, and
Yeah.
It's all of these small details that makes this book so
appealing.
And the concept was so enticing for both of us. Like we love that idea of having a book that has layers,
Multiple stories in a way, right?
and that involves you using, you know, things other than the book itself. You know, that there's clippings in it. Like
it's multimedia.
We really love that concept, and I still love the concept.
It just wasn't implemented very well.
Just the execution just failed.
Look, as I said,
miserably.
the paper is fantastic and the presentation is really good. The story, however, was not so well done.
And we meant by all parts of the story. So, okay, let's begin with the original text.
Okay.
Like I tend to like to start off with the original text, which is what this book is in the first place, which is
Like
the Ship of Theseus, the actual book. God, it's
Theseus, yes, Ship of Theseus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is the most dry and convoluted and
Boring.
nonsensical story I can think of.
Considering how I didn't finish the book, I can't actually comment much further than what I've read, which was, you have the main character, he's walking through the city, and he's written in such a romantic terms, like the rain is falling, the ground is slick, lights are reflecting off the puddles of water, and you can hear the sound of voices of the people around the city, and then it gets a little dark because he talks about the women that's getting hit, like I don't know, physical abuse or whatever, about the poor population in that city and how they're struggling to live. Look, he whacks on. He whacks on about the city.
And on.
And on. Like, okay, if this city was supposed to be featured in this book, like if it's like a main part, like it becomes a character of its own, sure, I understand why you wax on and on and on and on. But
they leave here very soon.
like, he walks through the city and then, like, we find out very soon that he doesn't have any idea. He has no clue who he is.
He's lost his memory, apparently.
Yeah. He doesn't know where he is. He just realized that he's drenched wet and he needs to get somewhere. And then he goes somewhere. He goes into a tavern. He orders a drink. He hits on a woman. And next thing you know, he's unconscious and in a boat somewhere. A ship.
A ship.
Okay. I fast-forwarded a lot. When I said 33 pages, he hasn't... I don't think he's reached the tavern yet. I don't think
he did.
Look, he talks about how pretty this woman is, or he'll talk about the tavern and the people in it. And again, none of this stuff matters.
No.
Because that's not where the story is based.
Nope.
He is on another boat. Apparently he's been kidnapped or something.
Yeah, he doesn't know why. And this is also where it gets really strange. The boat itself and the crew of the boat. It's written in this really eerie and kind of...
Everything seems slightly dreamlike because everything's slightly unreal.
Yeah.
Because he's also... Because he's it's supposed to reflect his state of mind, right? Because he doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't look... You know, he doesn't understand where he belong in this world. There's nothing anchoring him. And this portrays it very well. Everything seems kind of out there. Which makes it very hard to get into the story because I don't like this character. There's nothing to like. He has no personality.
He also has no... There's no drive.
No.
So, because the character doesn't have any drive, as the reader, it's very hard to get that drive to continue reading because you're just like, well...
Things are happening to him and he's letting it happen to him.
Yeah. And what is he doing? He let it happen... Continue and just plod along, and it's frustrating because you never feel that you never feel that there's anything that you can kind of base your world on.
No,
because he is so disoriented, you feel really disoriented, and I get that's kind of what they wanted in the first place.
I mean, look, it makes sense. I mean, if you have no idea who you are, of course you just kind of ride it out to see what happens before you do anything. And then if you get kidnapped and put onto a boat, sure, you're in the middle of nowhere. You're not going to jump off the boat and swim in any one direction. There's nothing actually he can do, action-wise, but it doesn't make the story any more interesting. Just because he has no options doesn't mean we want to read him having no options.
Yeah. And the whole book, like, okay, and arguably I've got a lot further than that, but it doesn't change throughout the whole book.
Things just happen.
Things just happen, and it never kind of really progresses how that story goes. And look, to be honest, I skimmed more than half of the main text because it was just so insanely boring and dry. Yeah.
So this is the thing, right? When I first tried to read it, I just read the main text because I was thinking I was going to go through this book in like a chronological order. I will read the book, the main text first, then I'll read it again with the first layer of comments, and then I'll read it again with the next layer. I was looking forward to this because I thought it would be interesting to read it that way. Then I read the first part, like the main part, and I read up to the part where he gets kidnapped, put on a boat. He ends up on a different island somewhere, like a different city. He goes into the city and he finds out that there's this protest going on, a riot going on, and he somehow gets roped in to being part of the protesters. And of course, at the same time, he's again talking about, the romanticism of the city, right? The people and the things that they were wearing and the leather shoes or something along those lines. And I just got bored. And I'm like, okay,
this is not going to work.
This text must not have been written for just, to be consumed by itself. You must have to read this with the marginalia to be interested. I thought that was how it was done. So I went and read it again with the comments in the side. And that's when I decided, look, I did everything in my power when I read the initial go to block out all the side text. Even though they're right there in front of me, I had paper on top of it so that I don't see anything, so I don't glance at anything, so nothing pops up at me, peripheral visions. So I had no warning whatsoever when I read it the second time. I had no warning that I would be confronted by two of the most... what's the word?
Dislikable?
That's
putting nosely.
Very nicely, yes. Douche would probably be another way. What's the other word that I said before?
Insufferable?
Yes, that's the word. They are so... Again, this is something that Peter mentioned before, and I'm gonna steal your idea, and I'm saying this now. When characters are insufferable and annoying, sometimes it could be diluted in a book because you see their actions and it might be different from how they speak, or they might grow as people, or just other things happens to dilute this personality that you're interacting with. When you're reading comments in the side of the book, all you hear are the voices of these characters. You don't see them do anything. And when you hear an insufferable person talk in your ear, and all you hear is their voice, read is their voice, nothing dilutes that. They are just insufferable. They're like angsty teenagers talking about the most inane thing possible. Yes, it is. There are parts where they talk about the way the book is written, and they'll talk about the history of the author. That doesn't help because they talk like lit students. No offense to lit students. I don't mean I don't mean real life lit students. I'm talking about the stereotype of a lit student,
where you basically analyze and overanalyze every single sentence in the book.
They'll be like, "Oh, he used roses in this paragraph, and he mentioned roses before in 3 of his 16 books. It must mean something. And I can't help, because I've done lit before, and that was one of the annoying thing about that class, is when people say that, I'm like, no, it could just be roses.
No, not everything needs to have a double, triple, or quadruple meaning. There are sometimes some things can be quite simply just what it is on the page. It doesn't have to be all these super convoluted linkages to whatever you're trying to say. And I know, okay, while I agree in this particular case, there may have been some reason for it, but it's annoying to read when someone is trying to convince you like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, you're trying so hard. You're pulling so many things out of thin air. I'm like,
It's
I
like
can't.
he's on a boat in the middle of the water. Of course, there's water everywhere. It doesn't mean that the water means something. Like, rebirth and, like, underworld. And, like, stop. He's on a boat in the middle of the water. Of course there's water. If there's no water, there's a problem. And so, and then you have that interspersed with conversations between the two characters, where they're kind of like slightly snarking at each other, slightly flirting with each other, and since I don't like them, I don't care either. Every single page in this book has comments in the margin. It is not actually possible for a novel, like if it was a lit book, for every single page to have something worth commenting on. So they have to fill it with something, and inane chatter is what they decided to go with.
Okay, so the issue. Okay, so the premise is like, the original postgrad student, Eric. He writes his comments in the margin.
He's doing a thesis.
He's doing his thesis. He's trying to make sense of it. So he puts these random comments in the book. Because it's a library book, he puts it blank where it's supposed to.
Well, no, I thought he left it there.
Oh, he left
it.
it.
The library book was from his high school.
Yeah, actually, you're right. And then he left it, and then this other girl, Jen,
finds
the book and starts flipping through it and sees, oh, this is interesting. Let me
add my
comments on it, which is fine. The problem is the way you read these comments doesn't work if they weren't actually sitting right next to each other and passing the book between them and having a conversation, because that is exactly what they're doing. They are having a conversation when they couldn't.
Because what happened is this book is supposedly left at the library. One person comes, write the comments, leaves. The second person comes probably the next day, later that day. Who knows? At a later time, reads the book and writes their comment, and they do this constantly over a long period of time. When a conversation happens like this between two people, there's bound to be, disjointed thoughts, or like if I wrote a comment here and then you commented on it, and then I come back a week later, I might have forgotten what my original point was because too much time has passed. Other stuff has happened. But when you read this book, some of the conversations flow on in a way that realistically doesn't make sense, because they will mention some. Oh, okay. Here's an example. One person says, "Oh, I'm about to graduate in May. I don't know what I'm going to do, with my life after graduation." And the second person would be like, "Oh, you should think of what you like best and do that." By the way, I don't even want to comment on that, but anyway. And then she will come back and say, "That's a very good idea. Thank you for giving me that." There's just this flow that only makes sense if she was right there and she wrote that 5 minutes after he wrote. Like, it's just it reads like a chat history. It does not read like handwritten comments left in a book. It doesn't read like a letter.
No, because you would expect, if it was written in separate sessions, they'll be mentioning things that
they thought of later on.
But it never really creeps up like that. So they always seems to be in the moment and only referring to stuff like that. Whereas,
But I can also see why that is I can see why that is the way it is, because it's a limitation of how it's written. It's very hard for one person to look. This is a very hard project to make. Okay, it's very hard to go and think about how to disjoint the conversation to make it look realistic.
Yeah.
Also, it would be very hard for us to read.
true.
Right? If you have random comments here and there that don't actually resolve into a conversation, it would also be boring for us to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can understand it's a limitation of the format. They try to do this to make it easier for us to read. It's just unfortunate that it also pulls us out from our, suspension of disbelief. And I'm just nitpicking at this, but that's what is happening, right, with this book.
I think, unfortunately, unlike other books, which sometimes calls for a suspending belief, you can kind of get away with it because it's not constant. It's not like it happens all the time. So you can kind of go like, okay, I'll just ignore that and continue with the story. This is so jarring every single time you read the comments that you can't help but notice it every single time. And because every single page has comments, it's constantly there. It's like constantly reminding, that this really can't happen because it doesn't make sense. Like
that scene that you were talking about, where she had just experienced, was it like someone broke into her room?
Yeah.
She was okay. So the whole idea is that they are researching into the death of this author, and the idea is they begin to get stalked.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's supposed to be a conspiracy, right? And it's supposed to be a true thing. Like somebody is out to get them or whatever.
Look, whether it's true or not, we don't know because we never got to the end of the book. But that's from what we've read so far. This is what it seems like.
So they're getting stalked. Her apartment gets broken into, and her response is to take the book, go to the uni library, and write in the margins about her experience, and to tell the other guy how she feels safe in the library. I haven't read up to that part. This is what Peter told me happened.
That's what happened, and it didn't make sense. Like seriously, if that happened to you, someone broke into your apartment, rummaged through your notes and stuff,
you have to report it to the police.
Yeah.
And you'd probably be involved in doing a police report and all that stuff. You probably would not be in the mood to comment on your
and let alone
to your pen pal,
and let alone go to the library because that is the safest place you feel. Really,
if someone is stalking you,
the library
where there's no other people around.
Yes. Sure. That. Yeah. Don't even get me started on. Okay. Yeah. So. There was a lot of issues with that scene.
Yeah, but that again is a limitation of the format they chose, right? That there's no omnipotent narrator talking about the events that's happening to them. We have to rely on these narrators.
Yep.
As I said to Peter before, it's kind of like the Princess Diaries series, where it's from the point of view of the main character, and she has a series of diaries where she's talking about her experiences. So one of the experiences she has is that she goes to the prom or the ball or whatever it is, and she's having a terrible time. So she goes and hides in the females' toilets, and she writes a diary entry about how terrible her experiences are. I mean, if you're 14 and you read that, you might believe it. Any discerning reader would be like, wait a second, you went to the ball and you took your diary with you? You must have been expecting a terrible time, because why would you do that? So it's the same with this book, because of the format that they chose to do this, like that it's marginalia, like that it's comments in the margin of a book. For them to describe exactly everything that happens, they have to be put into situations where normal people would not be writing in a book. Now, I understand that. It doesn't make this book any more enjoyable to read, unfortunately. But I have to admit, that is not the reason why I stopped reading the book. Okay, the fault of this book is not because of inconsistencies of the conversation between the characters.
Oh,
It's-
but
yeah.
can I say one more inconsistency that really bugged me? Just,
Yep, sure.
Sort of just then. So there's also one part where he gets funding to go off somewhere
Oh, overseas. Yeah.
overseas. Okay, and
She's left with the book.
she's left the book. So midway through somewhere in the middle part, she has these conversations with herself. So just saying, "Oh, I know you're not going to read this, but." I was like, and then she kind of goes, "Where are you? You said you'll be back already. I'm kind of worried. Where are you?" And it repeats a few times.
But why? It's not like...
Yeah.
It doesn't make it... It's not like a letter that she's sending to him.
Exactly, he doesn't know any order, and his response to that in a few pages later will be like, "Oh, I got held up at the airport for whatever reason, blah 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 blah." But that's like a few pages after that. When those comments were made,
Right.
you think if I read that and I was responding to you, I would put it very early at the front of the book saying, "Just letting you know I'm okay."
Yeah, not hidden...
Not hidden in like
200
halfway through the book, and not even in the page where she was saying, "Where are you?" But a few pages after, and say, "Oh, let's just letting you know I got held up." No.
Well, they have to write it that way so that it's suspenseful for us as readers.
But that's just contrived suspense that
Yes.
they
Yes.
have to try and develop this suspense when there is no suspense.
Well, but that's the thing, right? Because there is no suspense because, okay, as I said, the writings are different colors, right? So the blue writing happens first, and then the green writing happens next. The fact that there are green letters, green writing, means that any danger that was hinted at in the blue writing
Yeah.
is resolved.
Yep.
Because they must be safe
Yep.
for later comments to happen. It's what happens when you write in such a first-person kind of view, because nothing could have happened to the characters. Otherwise, there would be nothing for us to
Right.
read.
Yeah.
So I don't fault the book for that. Okay, like that.
That's
they
just the
have
way
to do-
that's the medium.
Yeah,
in
right. They had
itself.
to write it that way for it to be interesting. And I use air quotes for interesting because the book was not interesting. The reason why I stopped reading is mainly because the story is boring, the characters are annoying, and I know that there's supposed to be a mystery. Unfortunately, okay, I don't know whether it's unfortunate or not. I can understand why some people would like to read this book and try to work out the mystery. Like, there's codes written in between the pages. If you take out the first letter of every single footnote, it will, in the first chapter, it will make a message. Things like that is interesting, but it does take work.
A lot of work.
A lot of work too. Because, like, if you're reading a book, would you think, oh, out of all these words on the page, let me just take out the first letter of every footnote to figure out what is being said? Like, you wouldn't think that. You'd actually work at it to try and figure it out. And when I'm reading a book, most of the time, I'm reading it for entertainment. I don't really want to think too hard. I like books that make me think, in the sense that they give me... They
make you ponder.
Yeah, they make me ponder certain ideas, a certain way of thinking that I've never thought of before. But when it's a puzzle in a book, I need to be enticed to solve the problem. And this book...
It's not enticing at all.
No.
Like, I get it that, the whole point of those, the codes and everything is to kind of point out who the author is and stuff like that. But I don't care, because this story is so boring, insanely boring. Like, I trudged through half of the book and I still have no idea what it's wanting to say. And I don't really care for it. And because of that, no matter how intricate the puzzle is or how well crafted, and some of them are really well crafted, it bears no relevance to me because I don't care. I literally don't care that, oh, it's really smart that, if this is how you're supposed to look at the word and using this word as the cipher, and then you get these, I just don't care, because that takes a lot of effort, which I'm not getting any enjoyment out of. If I'm not enjoying it, why am I doing this?
And that's what's the other thing. The book is interleaved with like inserts, as we said. And when I first got this book, I really wanted to go through and look at all those inserts. And I was telling myself, no. I'll only look at it when I get to that part of the book. And that was supposed to help entice me to read the book, because I want to quickly get to the next insert. But the thing is, when I started reading the inserts, they weren't that interesting either.
No.
They're very well done.
Yep.
Like they're like the newspaper articles have ads and everything in it, but the content, it fails the same way the book failed.
Yeah, it fails to entice you.
It
why
didn't.
am I reading this particular postcard? I mean, I guess, okay, in fairness to the book, I guess if I've read through the whole thing and I guess if I paid that much attention to it, maybe it means something to me. But again, that takes a lot of work on my part, which I'm not necessarily
Willing to do.
So they make no sense to me. They add nothing to the story to me. They're just random postcards that have no bearing to the story, from my point of view. I'm sure it probably has, but I don't care.
I thought the side comments make references to the inserts. No?
Only some of them, not all of them. And that's the other thing. You look at some of the inserts and like, where did this come from?
Oh, okay.
It doesn't really, not all of them actually make sense.
Oh, okay.
I
haven't gotten that far.
Or maybe I just, ignored it. It totally could be true. As I say, I skim read a lot, and you can't skim read this book. This just doesn't allow that.
Yeah, so I'm afraid we can't talk too much about the book because we never finished it. In a way, you could say I barely started it.
But that's the other thing. Like with the two main characters in the book, Eric and Jen, it's like reading a really, really badly written YA novel. If you just take their comments out, ignore the fact that they're commenting on the text. If you just read the comments, it's like reading a really, really badly written YA. Like I feel like, are you guys really a postgrad and an undergrad student? Because you guys sound like you're 15 and 14. You guys do, and the way they handle things are like, you guys are you guys even of age yet? Because you guys sound like you're kids and trying to play with adult things.
Well, some of the things that they write, they like underline and triple underline to make it seem so important, or they're writing capital letters, put the book away and keep it safe or something. It has that feeling to me. It gives me the feeling of like when we were kids and we had, diaries, and we'll write in the front cover, do not open, private property of whoever, and you underline private, or like, if you read this, I will hunt you down. Because as a kid, you think this is the most important thing ever, right? And as an adult, you have a perspective and you're like, that wasn't really such a big deal. And I can't help but read this book and I'm like, while you're in it, you guys seem to think this is really important. But in the grand scheme of things, this author died, and I use air quotes because that was supposed to be a mystery whether he died or not.
Yeah.
Well, okay. This book was written before you were born, right? He died before you were born. Like was it 100 years before? Like, this is a long time ago. You solving this mystery is not going to change the world.
But according to him, it is, because it's his life now. This is his life.
Oh, he's so insufferable.
He is so insufferable.
The things he says, like, he's so self-important. He's so angsty. He's misunderstood.
Again, the 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Basically. the
Oh,
15-year-old
he's so
boy.
misunderstood. Right? Like, oh, no one understands me. Like, everyone's out to get me. That's his attitude in the books,
Yeah.
in the comments. And
And I say, because we don't see anything else but his voice in it, I can't get to like him because
No.
he's not likable, and there's no way for me to make it likable. I think
So-
I've had enough talking about this book. It's just going to bug me and just annoy me, I think.
there is no... Okay, I was about to say there's no redeeming quality about this book. No, and that's not fair.
No.
As I said, there's a lot of effort put into this book. A lot of effort has been put into the book to make, like, the presentation is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just a little disappointing that the actual content did not live up to it.
Little disappointing?
Well, I say little because I hesitate to say it's bad because we've never finished it.
That is true.
Right? If we read up to the end, there could have been this big twist, and we find out that, I don't know, I can't think of what things I could redeem it, but it could be, because like, so many people love this book.
I know, and so many people love. But see, a lot of people who love this book seem to be loving the crypts,
mystery.
the mystery, or trying to solve the codes.
Yep. But you have to read the book to be able to do that.
But I don't see anyone talk about this actual story. Which makes me think that actually a lot of people don't like the story. They like code, so it's more like, hey, this is a brilliant code breaking exercise for you guys. And that's why I love it, because this is really interesting. I want to break this code more than like, oh, this is a really good story. I wonder what's the thing behind it.
perhaps that's why, like, we're the wrong audience for it.
Possibly.
Like, this should be a code breaking exercise, and we're reading this like a novel, and it probably shouldn't be read like a novel.
Probably not.
Yeah,
But if you want to be entertained and you want to read a novel, please don't read this.
like, no, okay, let's look at it this way. Like, sometimes I read really badly written YA, and then you go to Goodreads, and there's so many people raving about it. And they're raving about the exact reason why I hate it, right? I think the writing is terrible. I think the characterization is terrible. But these people are waxing on about how she's the best writer and how the characters are fantastic. Oh, he's so cute, blah, 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 blah. And I find that to be annoying, because it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, your standard is so low that you think this book is good. Like, really, go out and read something that's written well, and then come back and tell me that this book is good. Now, with this book, the people who are waxing on about it, as you said, are not saying that the story is fantastic, because the story isn't fantastic. Because this book is such a complicated book, I find that the only people who could...
Enjoy it.
People who like it for superficial reasons would not be able to finish the book. I don't know whether that means we're superficial or not, but...
I'm totally superficial if that's the case. That's true.
like, as I said, we are reading it for the wrong reasons then, right?
We're reading to be entertained.
And we are hating it for the wrong reasons. Okay, if we were interested in solving the problems and the clues and the crypts, maybe if the clues were terrible, if it was easily solved, maybe we're justified in hating it then. Yeah. We are currently judging it like apples and orange situation, right?
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's why maybe the ratings on Goodreads for this book is justified for the right reasons, for the right audience.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Well, that's my argument anyway. Like, you know, my justification of buying this book. It's a great piece to have on your shelf, if only just to show people.
Hey, read this. Actually, really don't read this.
Well, no, that's the thing, right? You show people about this book. It's like a piece of artwork, right? No one's going to take the time to read it, not while they're in your house anyway. They might go and buy their own copy, in which case I would tell them don't do it. It just looks impressive on your shelf.
It does. It's one of those books that just... Yeah. Because it has a lot of things to show. You can show a lot of it. I see how intricate this is, or, you know, how...
Like, if only there was a way to actually go to the the clues or the puzzles in this book without having to read it, I'd probably enjoy it more. I don't know. I probably would go to a website that actually have all the spoilers or whatever and read through that, because I might appreciate it better then.
Possibly.
I probably should have read it before. I probably should have read a site like that before doing this podcast. But I didn't want to ruin my impression of this book. No, because when I read another person's website and I find out the backstory of it,
Yeah.
then it's not my thoughts. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's their thoughts.
Yeah.
So I want to do this. Like, probably later on, I'll read one of those sites and
Yeah.
find out, oh, hey, actually, the reason why this is so terribly written is because they had to be able to fit 15 instances of S in this paragraph. And they had to think of words that have that number of S's.
Yeah, and they kind of do that in some of the footnotes later on. They deliberately kind of make things that doesn't make sense, or they deliberately misspell certain words.
Yeah, okay.
So you can kind of pick those things up.
Yeah.
But again, I just don't care for it if the story doesn't interest me to kind of know what the code meant.
Yep.
And that's, I think at the end of the day, that's it. It makes, it's like, it's not like I'm not interested in the puzzle, because I love doing puzzle. I love doing,
Yep.
I love, escape rooms and stuff like that. I
Yep.
love doing all of those. But at the end of the day,
There needs to be a reason
there
for
needs to
doing
be
it.
a reason for me to do it. If there's no reason, then I can't get into it. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, no, I completely understand. It would... This is a very hard project to get right. This is a very complicated project, right? To have all these pieces in there. If they have managed to do it, it would have been the greatest book
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
So that's why I won't fault it for not being able to become that greatest book.
I also find it's kind of hard because even though it's written in two voices, you can still tell it's written by the same person. I think this is one of those books that would really have been better if they actually had two writers
Yep.
to do each take one personality.
Yep.
Actually, I was mentioning this to Serena before, like that's a project we should actually try.
Our own version.
Our own version of it, because I'm really interested in seeing how it works and how it can be
Like
interesting.
how our conversation...
how a conversation would go, because we obviously have lots of things to talk about, and we have lots of things that we have issues with and
Yep.
things, right? And we're very opinionated in a lot of things. So how does that translate to on page? I wonder if it will actually work the same way. I'm kind of really interested. So, hey, we might actually do that.
Okay, there's a little bit of a problem here. One, I don't know whether there's a book where I'll be willing to read multiple times just to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can write your comments in it, give it to me. I write my comments in it,
I
give
don't
it
know.
to you. I don't know how many times we could do this before it kind of gets like, I just want to read your comments. I don't want to read the book, and I'll
Yeah.
end up writing you a letter or something.
Yeah.
Or like this podcast. You
Yeah.
know, we just talk about this instantly. I don't know whether I could... I need instant satisfaction.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like, can I wait for you to finish reading the book the 15th time so I could read the 4 new comments you write in there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Second thing is, I can't write in the
In books.
margins of a book.
Yeah. We have a...
It's desecrating the book. And also, even if we wanted to do that, there's not a lot of books out there which give you so much room around the border to give you sufficient places to write. Like, I don't know whether we'll have I don't like the logistics. I don't know how this would work.
Yeah.
Whether we'll have to like write a letter to each other with like dot points with saying the page number and the comments we have. Like, I'm a person who write letters, like handwritten letters, and one of the things I've noticed is that if you bring up 7 points, something, just 7 different points that you want to talk about, and then you
wouldn't.
send a letter to me, and then I look at the 7 points and I want to comment on the 7 points.
Yeah.
So now I have 7 points.
Yeah.
But I want to make my own observations.
Yeah.
So I add another 7 points.
Yeah.
So now there's 14 points for you to respond to.
Yeah.
And you might want to add more stuff. That letter gets really unwieldy
Yeah.
and very hard to write. I've seen that. And every now and then you have to do like a refresh where
Yeah.
you just ignore what the other person has written and just bring up 7 new points to talk about. Because
Yeah.
otherwise it just gets draggy
Yeah.
and long.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I'd be up for trying it.
Not now, but
Not now, but
in sometime in the future.
yeah.
If we ever do it, that will definitely be a podcast.
Will we actually scan the pages online?
well, if we do, then I guess we have to.
Yeah, something.
See, I was more actually thinking like maybe we can kind of do it like as in if I actually write a story, as in like a novel, and then you comment on it, as kind of like how I guess writers and editors talk about things.
I don't know whether I have the tact. Like, editors have to be very tactful about telling you that you wrote terribly.
Yeah.
Right? Because, a writer's ego is very fragile.
Yeah.
I would know if I wrote something. I don't know whether I'd be willing to show anyone. Right?
I don't know. Because I'm thinking. Oh, anyway. Again.
Yeah.
Completely,
off topic.
Off
Completely.
topic. And look, it may never happen since it is kind of difficult to work with. But I think it's something that it'd be interesting. Just from a literature point of view, I think it'll be an interesting concept.
Well, one of the things I was thinking, like, I don't know, I just had this thought right now. Like, if we both had a copy of the book, instead of passing it back and forth, say you read, we don't even have to do the whole book, right? Because it'll take too long. If you read a chapter and then you write your comments and your stuff, post it as a blog. We can create a blog. And I will read the chapter, read your blog comment, and I write my blog comment. So it's like an ongoing thing where people can read with us and read our thoughts on it. I don't know. It's just a thought out there, because how much are we willing to...
Well,
this becomes homework, right? This becomes like... okay, Peter, I know that you're about to graduate and you won't have no projects or assignments left. Do not create assignments for us to do. Okay? We barely have enough time to read the books or watch the TV shows that we're supposed to do in time for the recording. To be able to actually write blog posts.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine for us to ramble when we're doing a podcast.
Probably a bit too ambitious.
A little bit.
Anyway, I think we should wrap up on that. I think we've given you guys a good idea of what we think about this particular book.
Yep.
I think we gave a pretty scathing review, to be honest.
Look, I as I said multiple times, it's a work of art.
It is a work of art.
Like, it is very well made. It's just the writing is...
Just don't expect to be entertained by the book.
It was very hard. It was very hard to make, and they tried as best as they could. Oh, wait, no, okay, here's one thing. You know how you said that the comments, they sound like the same person? The book doesn't sound like them.
That is true. No, the book is written very differently.
The book is written like an old, like novel, like... Written in those times, it's dry and boring.
Again, that's another reason why I couldn't get it.
Yeah, it's written like a book that you read in literature class. And there's a reason why I stopped going to literature class.
Actually, are we done with the S dot then?
Yes, we're done. Like, done. I'll just put this on my shelf and...
I have high hopes that I will finish it, because I kind of just wanted to know what the ending is. If there is an ending, I'll let you know if I ever do. But I will try to finish it. On something about much more enjoyable. I've been going to this. I've been reading.
Sorry, before we do this, I'm going to pull pull audience out of their enjoyment of listening to our voices for a while. We've been talking for a very long time, and the sun has set, and there's no lights in this room, and we're both illuminated by the screens of our laptops, which...
it's really annoying.
Like, Peter, it's... I don't think people can hear you right now when you walk off without the mic, but... As much as I enjoy talking to you, the atmosphere is slightly creepy.
I know, right?
with the laptop light kind of shining from underneath you and illuminating your face with this.
See, I was hoping that we would actually be finished by now, so that I didn't have to go and stop in the middle of the recording.
But then you were going to talk about a different thing, so I'm like, okay, we need to turn on the lights because we're going to go on for another 20 minutes.
Okay, so. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, recently...
Stop touching the mic! I'm leaving this in. But Peter, you're constantly touching the mic,
Right.
and it makes it hard for me to edit afterwards.
Whatever. Yeah, what was I going to say? All right. Okay. So I've been recently going to this website. It's basically a translation website.
Okay.
It's called Wuxia World.
Okay.
I'll give you the link later.
Okay.
It's
Peter's providing links for the show
I
notes.
know, right? That never happens. So basically, this is translation of Chinese fantasy novels.
Oh.
Chinese fantasy and light novels.
Oh, like as in those old martial art novels?
Not quite.
Okay.
But it's fantasy. It's fantasy novels in Chinese. Like, and so what we obviously we Chinese. So what we growing up and we know as fantasies in
Yeah.
the Chinese culture.
That's what I meant by martial.
Oh yeah,
martial arts novels. Yeah, okay.
It's basically
That.
all the current ones all the current hit novels
Oh.
translated, and some of them are really good. And
Okay.
it's so interesting to read, and it's funny because like they talk about like how the cultivation, and it's like
Cultivation of what?
Shaolin.
So how you practice your martial arts and stuff.
Yeah. So they call it cultivation, how they cultivate higher ranks and stuff like that. It's really interesting because they're basically translating all these novels. These are all new novels, by the way.
Okay,
They're not like the traditional old ones
Yep,
that we read.
yep.
So there's all these new Chinese novels that's really hit right now in China,
really
popular right now. And I'm reading some of them, and some of them are like really interesting.
In China or Hong Kong?
China.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are real, like actual, like not the Hong Kong style type.
Uh-huh.
It's as I say, so it's not wuxia, it's more xianxia.
Oh,
Xinha.
about
Gods and
yeah.
and
I don't want to use fairies. It's not fairies.
no, it's not fairies.
Spirits.
Sin is not really spirits either. But anyway, so
Yeah.
it's a fantasy world, right? And they have like Chinese ones. They have also Korean ones as well. Actually,
okay.
Yeah, so they have a lot of different ones. One of them the only reason why I actually read this one is because I actually saw the manga on MangaFox.
Okay.
They actually had a manga for this particular
Yep.
one that I was reading, and I was like, oh, I'll just randomly look into it. And because it's in the style of, Chinese
Yep.
mythology, I was like, I haven't seen these in a while because
Okay.
obviously we're so used to reading Japanese anime mangas and stuff, and they don't have that.
Yep.
It was really refreshing and also nostalgic for me because I read it and I'm like, oh, I used to love reading these things as kids.
Well,
Like,
you learnt Chinese from reading those.
yeah. And so, like, I was reading through the manga, and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting," and I really like the story. And I think I flew through like 130 chapters in like one day.
Okay.
I think I basically just didn't sleep that night. It's
jeez.
I was just reading manga. Oh, this is great.
Okay, well, here's the thing. It's nostalgic for you because you read it as a kid. You read books like that as a
Yeah.
kid and you learned Chinese that way.
Yeah.
I've never read any of those because the Chinese was too complicated for
Yeah.
me and I never bothered.
Yeah.
So it always felt to me like, there's a lot of these books, at least the olden ones, get made into TV series.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
watched them as a kid. I watched all these TV series as
Yeah.
a kid. And I've always felt like I've missed something because it feels like it's a genre that I would like.
Yeah.
But it was always inaccessible to me.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that they're available in English, because I've always thought, it'd be good if I find an English version, but I never actually took the. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure some of them have been translated in English.
Yeah. Bless you.
Oh god, and I have hay fever as well. This is not a good season for me. So if you're telling me that if there's an English version of this online, I'd be quite interested in
And it was
trying
just
it.
and so I was reading the manga, right?
Yeah.
And then it stopped because they've caught up.
Oh, okay.
Well, they haven't made any new ones yet.
Yep.
But this particular story which I was following had 400 chapters already.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, I need to know what happens.
Okay.
And so I went and figured, and then I realized that, oh no, they've got translations of this English
Oh.
translations of this. Obviously, I could actually read the Chinese one.
Yep.
But it just so happens because I started off reading in English,
Yep.
I can't change it out now.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, the terms and the people name and stuff like that.
Although
change.
actually, people names is the one thing that really gets me because they use the Chinese words in this and they translate literally how it sounds, right?
Oh, so names are a bit weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. That's the only thing which I get frustrated. I can see what the name is after I pronounce it out.
Yep.
I actually know what the actual Chinese words are,
Yep,
so
yep.
then it's not too bad. But I can see for a foreigner, they might find it really weird
And
because
they might lose track.
they
of
might
who's
lose
who.
track who's who. Yeah, so that's the only bad thing. This particular one that I was reading is called Tales of Demons and Gods. Mm-hmm. In Chinese, it's 有神記.
Yep. The translation's pretty accurate there.
Yeah. So, very basic plot. The story starts off with this person fighting the demon, sage, god, emperor, whatever. He dies. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's the last thing he remembers. He suddenly gets transported back into his, 14-year-old self or 13-year-old self at school.
Okay.
Okay? And he suddenly kind of just goes like, what the hell?
Yep.
Why am I back here? And then he realized, wait, this is school. This is when I learned all these martial arts and stuff, and this is school. And you guys are all dead. And he goes like, what's happening? And then he quickly kind of accepts that
This is his
is
new reality.
New reality. But now I have all this knowledge of my previous life. I'm going to change all of the stuff to help in stuff because obviously have things happen, and so things led to another, and his cities get destroyed, his loved one gets killed, and he has to fight the demon. But now he has all this knowledge. He's going to change everything.
Oh, okay.
And it's a really interesting concept and because they don't kind of dwell on how he gets transported, they just go, no, he's transported.
Oh,
just
okay.
deal with it.
Okay.
I like the fact they don't try to explain all of it. They just
okay,
go
okay.
like, just accept this is the premise of the
Yep,
show.
yep.
Deal with it.
Yep.
And go from now on. And so you have him who actually is a very poorly talented person in real. So he was very poorly talented. He has no talent in
that first present time, he was failing. Like when he first fought that demon, he was
No. He eventually became really strong, but that was after going through a lot of work, unnecessary work.
okay.
He still isn't a very talented person, but now, having known all of his knowledge,
Yep.
he realized that he can be so much better now.
Yep.
Because he can skip all the
Yep.
hard parts and do whatever, right? And so the first pretty much 200 chapters is like that. How he changes his the outcome of the city and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it starts to get weird after the 200 something chapter, and then I stopped reading, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. You made it sound so interesting.
I know,
and I want to
and I
read
really
it.
wanted to get it. I really wanted the story to continue, but then he gets stuck with, love affairs. Because his one true love is this one person, but then he did realize there's this other one who was pining for him, and now God. It was so good until then.
The way this is written, does it feel like it's serialized? Like he didn't start off the series with an ending in mind, so it might be a little bit draggy because he's trying to get more money. Maybe.
Probably. I think these are. To be honest, I think a lot of these are actually like
novels?
online, web novels.
Okay.
That became really popular.
Okay.
Actually, this particular one, there was a Chinese anime.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a Chinese anime for it, so yeah, apparently it's popular. Otherwise, they wouldn't make it, right?
Yeah.
You would hate the anime because it's all the 3D CGI.
Oh God. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
The whole show is like that, so don't watch it. But you can have a look at it. I'll say look at it. But anyway. But anyway, so this particular website has a lot of these novels, and a lot of them are apparently really popular right now in China.
Okay.
Just thought I might
Let me know.
recommend
Yeah,
it.
cool. I'll have a look.
There's one particular one which apparently was really good. I haven't started reading it yet, though. Which one is it? Let me just find it. Oh, wait, it's in the completed ones. It is.
Oh, it keeps tracks of where you're up to?
No. Because they've got completed novels that they've
not
completed
you've
translating.
completed.
No,
Okay,
completed,
yeah,
no. It's called I Shall Seal the Heavens,
Okay.
or Yok Fong Tin.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, that's apparently one that's really famous in China at the moment.
Okay.
They had a YouTube video about the writer who's called, and they were just talking about how he suddenly became really popular with this spread novel.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm going to try reading that next time. So see if you're interested in it.
Okay. I've told you. Look, I'm sure the listeners will shout because I most likely have said this before. I've told you about that Buffy fan fiction.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
You haven't read it yet.
No. No, I haven't.
Considering how you read 200 chapters in like thingy, that is only 60 chapters.
But you said it didn't finish, right?
No, that one finished.
Oh, that one finished. Right?
It's the Labyrinth one that didn't
Oh,
finish.
okay,
The
right.
Buffy one finished. That Buffy one finished. Oh, no, you're thinking about the other Buffy one. No, this one's finished. This one's finished.
But I also forget, so...
I'll send you a message with a link
Yeah,
so you don't have to look for it.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, that's just my tidbit. So, introducing other listeners if they feel like reading, web novels from a different country.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting because it's also, yes, it's fantasy novel, but it's so not what you would, what a normal
Westerner
would consider fantasy novel. Because
it's based on a different mythology.
Yeah,
you don't have elves, you don't have dwarves, you don't have dragons. Well, you have dragons, but they're different dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons.
You've got fairies, I guess.
It's not.
They're not
It's
really
not
called
fairies. It's the word that we think of, but it's not like. It's not. It's not like the.
It's not like the pixie little fairy
No.
flying around, and
No.
not that.
No.
But yeah,
Saints.
Saints.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a very different mythology, and so I think people who enjoys fantasy that kind of wants to have a new take on fantasy might be interested in having a read of these.
Okay.
I found it a lot better than there was another writer called Kylie Chan
Okay. Oh.
who wrote. She's actually a Westerner, but she married a Hong Kong. Her husband is from Hong Kong,
Yep.
so she lived in Hong Kong for a while.
Oh, she was writing some martial art books,
Yes,
weren't they?
yes.
I was
the
always
white
interested about whether
red. No, it was White Dragon. No, White Tiger, Blue Dragon, Red Phoenix. That basically the Sei Da Yu Mo.
Yep.
Yeah. First book, really loved it.
Yep.
Second book was okay, and then from third book onwards, it was horrible.
I originally thought she was Asian, right? Because of the surname.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me she's a Westerner who married an Asian,
Yeah.
so took this surname and then wrote that genre. I hate to sound controversial, but that marketing is not good for me,
No.
right? Like they market it as like, oh, this is an Asian chick writing an English novel, but it's not.
No.
And I have a little problem
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. I didn't realize until I actually read the book until I've gone through it. I was like, oh, so she's not actually Chinese. But anyway, look, the first book was good, to be fair. I
Okay.
liked the first book, which is White Tiger. It gave a really good kind of world to build on, but it failed miserably afterwards.
Well, then that's the thing, right? If you're telling me that it doesn't get anywhere, I don't want to.
Yeah, that's why I never kind of recommended it because,
Okay.
and she had a second series to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the other reason why I feel it failed so badly was because, and this is not her fault, to be honest. This is, in a way, a problem with any Western person reading Chinese or reading people with Chinese names. It literally all sounds the same.
What do you mean?
Like, you've got Mr. Lee.
Oh,
Which freaking Mr. Lee are you talking about? Golden Lee and what? Just
okay.
look, names is one of those things. Like as a Chinese person, I don't have an issue with it because I can process the words like that. I can totally see why a Western would be so super confused because I'm reading it from a Western point of view and I feel confused.
Yeah, okay.
It's not until I kind of think about it in Chinese when I'm like, okay, so that's who she's talking about.
Okay.
That is not her fault, to be fair.
Okay.
This is just the way Chinese and the way English doesn't quite match in that sense.
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway, so that's one.
That's your recommendation.
That's my recommendation. Have a feel, read it if you have time.
My recommendation is less interesting in a sense. Yours is like, a lot of people probably didn't know about it or heard about it. It's a series called Peter Grant, have I told you, by an author called Ben Aronovich. Sorry, Ben Aronovich. The idea is that Peter Grant is a cop, a beat cop, a normal cop. And he accidentally bumps into the supernatural.
Yeah.
Okay. And he finds out that there's a branch of the police force. This is all based in London. So London features prominently in this. One branch of the Metropolitan Police deals with magic and supernatural and this part that no one knows about, right? Apparently the whole police force knows about this branch of the police force that is strange. Like all the upper heads know, upper echelons knows, like, oh, when this department requests something, you just do it, no matter how strange it is, because they deal with strange stuff.
Yeah.
So he is transferred to that police force, and the police force consists of one other person. He's a magician, like he's a mage. Well, no, magician. They call it magician, and he teaches. The magician teaches him magic, because you have to know magic to be able to deal with some of these denizens of the magical world. But the thing is, this magician is not all knowing. Like he was just one magician out of many that was hired, but there was this big war that happened that killed off nearly all the mages or all the magicians, and like magic was dying in the world because in this world magic and technology cannot coincide. If you bring a mobile phone and you cast a spell, your mobile phone will die.
Okay.
Unless you have it turned off and the battery taken out. Like they even give a technical reason, like the magic will erode some of the stuff and some. So with the rise of technology, magic was slowly dwindling down. So this magician, the old one, who's been living, like he has a long lifespan as well, because using magic does that apparently. He thought he was in his retirement years. Like he was waiting for magic to die out completely. That's why he's never taken on an apprentice.
Yeah.
He just thought, things are going to die down and then he would be obsolete.
Yeah.
Except suddenly magic came back out. Like apparently things are on the rise. This new guy comes along and he needs to teach him magic, but he was teaching him magic thinking, things would plod along as usual, nothing happens, except suddenly these crimes start happening and he needs to dig for information. Like this magician suddenly has to find old contacts that he hasn't talked to in ages and introduce his new protege to. But it's all from the protege's point of view as well. And you get this world that is very... Well, it is English, right? It's very London-based. You got London Underground. You talk about the underground railway, right? There's certain stations that are blocked off or sealed or something, and you talk about how there are magical beings living there.
Yep.
And I forgot. Do you like detective novels?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's also a detective novel, and I like the character. Like, he's really down to earth. Like, okay, the magician, he's also all about teaching him the traditional way, right? You've got to work on this kind of stuff. The policeman, he wasn't a very good beat cop because he has a tendency of getting sidetracked. Because he would know something, he would find out something, and he wants to do an experiment to test out his theory. So... this magician is teaching him all these theories on how to, cast a fireball or something. And he would try to find out why the magic works the way it works or whether there's a way to extend a range.
Yeah,
Like the other magician doesn't ask these questions. He
Yeah.
just trusts that this is the way it's done.
Yeah.
And this guy's like,
So
no,
he
I'm gonna...
pushes it and tries to do things with
So
it.
he makes things different. Like he found out that the mobile phones they kind of explode when you cast a spell. So he throws a mobile phone at an enemy and
Yeah.
then casts a spell so that the mobile phone would
Explode,
explode.
yeah.
Then it becomes like a bomb.
Yeah.
Like things like that. He'll change things up just to And so it's interesting to read from that one. I like the series.
Okay.
There's like I think 6 books, 7 books.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's not a short series,
Okay.
but every book.
It's its own
Yeah.
story. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
Yeah, more things to read.
Yeah, I'm looking at that stack of books that Peter has on his desk. He was complaining that because I told him to read S, he didn't have time to read any of the books on his table.
Which is true.
Except for the fact that I've seen that same stack of books on his table from like 3 or 4 months ago, and he could have read those books before I told him to start reading S. But so it's not my fault.
Not totally your fault.
Not totally my fault. Anyway.
Anyway, that sums up our podcast for
We need to
today.
talk about what we're going to talk about next episode.
Yes. So after much deliberation,
1.5 hours of deliberation.
we have come to the conclusion that we are going to talk about The Expanse next podcast.
The TV series.
TV series, not the book, because I don't think I'll have time to read the book.
The books are good.
I know, but if there's a TV show,
Yeah,
it
I
just
know.
makes
I
it
know,
easier.
I know.
Just watch it.
We're doing the first season.
Yeah, I'll see how much I go for. I might finish it, and then we can talk both seasons. But let's just keep our expectations low.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we don't have a situation like this one again, where we didn't finish the book. So let's just say we'll do the first season, possibly both seasons if I finish watching it. So yes, we'll watch The Expanse next time.
Okay. Did you want to do the closing again?
No, I think you can do it then. I did
Okay.
last time, right?
Yeah.
once out of the 12
Episodes,
podcasts.
So and last episode. Last episode I was saying, we forgot to mention that we've done 10 episodes already. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, we forgot to mention last episode that we've been doing it for a year.
Woohoo! Ta-da! Serena actually says, I'm surprised we lasted this long. I expected you to pull out a lot lower. I'm like, really? Really? I thought I had more dedication and
Yeah,
perseverance than that.
I'm not going to comment.
What?
Okay, so we need to finish now. We need to finish so we can start singing karaoke, because that's what we're going to do. Although I don't know whether my voice can handle it.
Let's eat first and then we'll
I'm
continue.
so hungry.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry. Okay, anyway, you can find the show notes at triggerpointfm.com/13. You can find us on Twitter at triggerpointfm. You can email us at triggerpointfm@gmail.com, and you can go to YouTube and find us by typing in Triggerpoint Podcast. If enough people subscribe, if we get 100 subscribers, I'll actually be able to get a custom URL done for YouTube.
Ta-da.
Hint, hint. Nudge, nudge. Wink, wink. Anyway, we'll see you next month.
See you next month.
Bye.
Bye.